Our US actress Diane Keaton has died at the age of 79. Was famous for her roles in Father of the Bride, First Wives Club and The Godfather. No details surrounding her death.
Is it true?
There are moments in Hollywood when the lights dim, not because a film ends, but because a legendary soul leaves the stage forever.
The end of the career and the end of the life is when you're dead. I mean, there's no end. There's no end. It's too exciting. Life is too profoundly amazing.
Diane Keaton's passing was one of those moments. The world didn't just lose an actress. It lost a voice, a style, a gentle defiance wrapped in wit and trembling honesty. Her friends, women who laughed with her, sparred with her, admired her, felt the silence first. What did they whisper when the cameras weren't rolling? What regrets surfaced in those late-night memories? What pieces of Diane did they carry? And which ones broke them? Stay until the end, because in number 5, there is an actress who she knew when she was just 15, and in number 6th person, she once thought about building a life with. Subscribe, and let's begin. Number 1, Meryl Streep. When news of Diane Keaton's passing broke, Meryl Streep was among the first to speak, not as the titan of acting she became, but as a woman who had shared a quiet, decades-long emotional tether with Diane. Their connection began on the set of Manhattan in 1979, a film that surrounded both actresses with scrutiny, gossip, and an industry still unsure how to treat women with strong minds and stronger voices. Diane once wrote in her memoir, Then Again, that Meryl possessed a kind of bravery I envied. Gentle, persistent, unshakably present. Meryl, in turn, told Vanity Fair years later that Diane was the kind of woman who made the room breathe easier. They rarely spoke about their friendship publicly, and that secrecy became part of its strength. Behind the scenes, during award seasons, backstage interviews, or long dinners at Diane's favorite tucked-away Los Angeles restaurants, they shared stories of aging, fear, heartbreak, and the strange loneliness that comes with being worshipped by millions but truly known by only a few. Meryl said in a 2014 roundtable that Diane was an anchor without trying to be one, a line that resurfaced everywhere after Diane's death. After the funeral, Meryl released a statement so short and trembling it shook the industry. She understood my silences more than my words. She later spoke more fully to People magazine, confessing that Diane's independence, her refusal to marry, her refusal to conform, had taught her something crucial about survival in Hollywood. She showed us that womanhood doesn't have one shape, Meryl said. It bends, it breaks, it rebuilds. In the days that followed, Meryl sent flowers not to the memorial, but to Diane's home, where her adopted children were still gathering her belongings. It was, Meryl felt, the truest place to say goodbye. Number 2, Goldie Hawn. Goldie Hawn's tribute to Diane Keaton began not with words, but with a long, trembling pause during an interview with Vanity Fair. Goldie and Diane had always shared a specific kind of bond, the kind built on laughter that comes from old wounds, on years spent surviving an industry that too often punished women for aging, thinking, or simply being themselves. They first crossed paths in the late 1970s during overlapping promotional circuits, but their true friendship blossomed a decade later, when both were navigating motherhood, fame, and the emotional disorientation that comes with being America's funny women. Diane wrote in Let's Just Say It Wasn't Pretty that Goldie carried sunlight in her pockets, even on the days she didn't believe she deserved warmth. Goldie, in return, once told Harper's Bazaar that Diane was one of the few women in Hollywood who understood how laughter can be armor. Their dinners, often spontaneous, always filled with stories, became a ritual. Goldie teased Diane for her turtlenecks, Diane teased Goldie for her constant optimism, and both found safety in the kind of honesty they couldn't risk with others. When Diane died, Goldie posted nothing for 2 days. Instead, she called Kate Hudson, crying in a voice that sounded like a mother grieving a sister. Goldie eventually broke her silence on Instagram with a simple line, "I've lost my balance today." Later, she elaborated in an interview that Diane had been her emotional mirror, reflecting fears she hid behind jokes. "She knew when I was pretending," Goldie said, "and she let me pretend until I was ready to tell the truth." At the private memorial, Goldie brought a small photograph, one taken during a quiet lunch in Malibu, both women laughing so hard their eyes were closed. She slipped it into Diane's casket, whispering, "You were the brave one." Number 3. Bette Midler. Bette Midler and Diane Keaton were never the kind of friends who floated through life without friction. Their relationship was built on sparks, creative sparks, emotional sparks, and sometimes the kind that set off small fires. They met formally while working on The First Wives Club in 1996, a film that became a cultural anthem for women reclaiming power. Behind the scenes, however, Bette later revealed in an interview with the New York Times that they were 3 women with 3 different emotional temperatures, and Diane's temperature, she joked, was cold water wrapped in a cashmere coat. But what the public didn't see was the respect simmering underneath. Diane wrote in her memoir, Brother and Sister, that Bette possessed a ferocity I could never imitate. She knew who she was before the cameras told her. Bette, for her part, once said on CBS Sunday Morning that Diane's softness was a form of steel, an emotional discipline she admired. Their friendship deepened over the years, especially as both navigated aging in a ruthless industry. Bette often checked in with Diane before press events, reminding her to stop hiding behind those hats and let people see your eyes. Diane usually ignored the advice, but she loved that Bette cared enough to give it. When Diane died, Bette responded with a tribute that echoed across social media. "A national treasure has left us." It was a line repeated by major outlets, but the true grief emerged later during a quiet corner interview at the memorial. Bette admitted she regretted not calling Diane more often in her final year. "We were both stubborn," she said. "We loved each other in sharp ways." At the service, Bette sang a few soft lines of "Wind Beneath My Wings," not as a performance, but as a whisper for a friend who had seen her, challenged her, and stood with her through changing tides. Number 4. Nancy Meyers. No tribute cut deeper than the one from Nancy Meyers, the filmmaker who arguably understood Diane Keaton better than anyone outside her family. Their creative bond began with Baby Boom in 1987, but it was Something's Gotta Give that immortalized their partnership. Diane often said in interviews that Nancy saw me more clearly than I saw myself. And Nancy once told the Los Angeles Times that Diane was the emotional engine of her films, an actress who could break hearts with a trembling inhale. Their friendship evolved into a quiet, decades-long sisterhood. Nancy sent Diane handwritten notes after every project. Encouraging, affectionate, sometimes playfully teasing. Diane wrote in Then Again that working with Nancy felt like stepping into a world where I could be complicated, messy, romantic, aging, unfiltered, and still the heroine. Nancy believed Diane didn't act the heartbreak in Something's Gotta Give. She lived it. It was Nancy who encouraged her to keep the now famous crying scene uncut, telling editors, "That's her truth. Leave it." When Diane died, Nancy was shattered. She posted a photo of Diane on the Something's Gotta Give beach set, standing alone against the ocean, wrapped in her iconic white sweater. The caption read, "She gave us everything." In interviews afterward, Nancy admitted Diane had been her muse, not in the romanticized Hollywood sense, but as a compass. "She reminded me that women don't age out of longing," she said, "and they don't age out of beauty." At the private memorial, Nancy delivered perhaps the rawest tribute of the night. Voice shaking, she recalled their final phone call. A simple conversation about a script Diane wanted to discuss. "I thought we had more time," Nancy whispered. "I wasn't done writing for her." Number 5. Reese Witherspoon. Reese Witherspoon grew up idolizing Diane Keaton long before she ever shared a room with her. She once said in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that Diane's films taught me how to be a woman who wasn't afraid of being strange, brilliant, romantic, or wrong. When they finally collaborated on industry events and private creative workshops in the early 2000s, Reese approached Diane with the awe of a student meeting her lifelong mentor. But what few people knew, even those close to them, was that their relationship held an undercurrent of unspoken tension rooted in Diane's past. Reese spoke after Diane's death through her production company's social channels, calling her a lighthouse for women who didn't fit the mold. But during a private memorial gathering, Reese shared a story that revealed the complexity behind their bond. Diane had once confided in her, late at night on a Santa Monica beach walk, about a painful, unresolved clash with a certain actress, someone Diane admired from afar but never worked with because their personal dynamic had collapsed before it began. Reese said Diane's voice cracked when she described the encounter, admitting, "I never knew what hurt me more, the disagreement or the silence that followed." This was the first time Reese realized that even legends carried emotional bruises they never discussed publicly. She later revealed in a Hollywood Reporter tribute that Diane taught her the difference between ambition and identity, and that strength wasn't always loud. The last time they spoke, just weeks before Diane fell ill, Reese joked about trying to imitate Diane's famous turtleneck aesthetic. Diane laughed and replied, "Don't copy my clothes, copy my courage." At the memorial, Reese placed a single white rose on Diane's photo, not in admiration, but in recognition of the lessons Diane passed on, lessons she had earned through conflict, forgiveness, and the quiet weight of unresolved goodbyes. Number 6. Woody Allen. Woody Allen was the name Diane Keaton never wanted to include in her final chapters, yet his shadow lingered across the earliest years of her career. Their partnership, creative, emotional, complicated, was responsible for Annie Hall, Manhattan, and a defining era in American cinema. Diane wrote in Then Again that Woody understood the rhythm of my mind before I understood it myself. But what she never fully explained publicly was the fracture that grew between them as their lives and legacies expanded in opposite directions. They never worked together again after the 1990s, and while the industry often speculated why, Diane kept her words careful, neutral, almost protective. But privately, according to those closest to her, there was a deeper emotional wound, one born from years of strained conversations, creative disagreements, and diverging moral worlds. Reese Witherspoon alluded to this in her memorial speech, calling it the heartbreak Diane carried in silence. Meryl Streep later told People that the two shared a history too heavy to lift in public. When Diane died, Woody Allen issued a short statement through his publicist. "I've lost an irreplaceable friend." It was respectful, restrained, and, some felt, purposefully distant. Yet, at the private service, one of Diane's longtime assistants revealed a detail that left the room quiet. Diane had carried a handwritten letter from Woody in her dresser drawer for more than 30 years. She never replied. She never threw it away. She kept it in the same place she kept her family photos and her children's notes, suggesting the clash had never erased the memory, only the closeness. Friends believed Diane's silence was not anger, but acceptance, a recognition that some relationships are meant to shape us, not follow us. At the memorial, as the room went dim, someone placed a small pair of Diane's trademark round glasses beside a vintage script of Annie Hall, a symbol of the woman Woody once loved, once wrote for, and ultimately lost to time. Diane Keaton's life was never defined by one role, one romance, or one creative partnership. She lived in fragments, moments of courage, waves of longing, friendships that shifted with time, and wounds she carried quietly beneath her signature hats and laughter. These 6 voices, each shaped by her in different ways, revealed not just their grief, but the unseen versions of Diane the world never fully knew. She was softness and steel, humor and heartbreak, a woman who refused to apologize for her contradictions. Now the question is yours. Which Diane Keaton do you remember? Share your thoughts in the comments and stay with us for more stories from Hollywood's most unforgettable lives.